Hello and welcome back to my Valentino Bay city build series on Cities Skylines 1. In the last episode we built this really detailed cargo train yard. It's got an active cargo station as well as bypass tracks, fake terminals and a bunch of small detailing. You may have noticed that this channel has recently changed name. I thought Cosy Skylines goes better with the kind of videos that I make, and I've also started an Instagram and a TikTok account for sharing content from these builds as well as some of my personal projects. It will be a lot easier for me to share content on those pages because these videos take a huge amount of time and effort to put together, and as you can tell I can't be as frequent with them as I used to be because I've got a lot of other things taking up my time. So if you wanted to see more frequent and smaller pieces of content from Cities Skylines 1 and possibly 2 as well, then give those pages a follow on Instagram and TikTok and let me know what kind of stuff you want to see on there. Today's episode is going to be focused on putting a little bit of industry and some warehouses in front of the station on this piece of land here. I downloaded some custom assets for this so that it fits in with the theme of the cargo station. It's not going to be huge because we don't have a very big population so far, but this will be the first generic industry to go in and it should hopefully sustain the town that's going to be built nearby soon. So let's get stuck into building. So here is the completed cargo and industrial hub for the east side of the map. I tried to make this area look very well used, so there's cracks all over the place, there's rubbish being left around, there's cars parked up on the side of the road where there might be workers there, and I've also put some facilities in here like a geothermal energy plant, a recycling centre, police and fire stations. Over here is a mix of industrial assets along with some parks and some warehouses that look like container yards. These items here are all parks. This is actually one that I made myself on the asset editor. I wanted to make something really small and thin that would fit in these tiny gaps in industrial areas that wouldn't add to the workload but would still fit the theme. So there's just a couple of forklifts, a little office and some stacked containers. You'll probably see a couple more of these dotted around the place. They're really good space fillers. I tried to make sure that all of the back alleys were filled with things like bins and cars and obviously the destroyed ground because it's got heavy use. And this one you kind of have to weave in and out of all of the stuff in the alley to get back there. Over here I used the same truck detailing like I did with the cargo station, put some vans back here and then made some destroyed ground in front of them to look like they get driven over quite a lot. You can't really see this because it's hidden behind the building, but there is that same pathway going down there. Obviously there's a whole lot of things stacked up back here. I like to think that they don't really take care of this area very often and they just kind of use it as a dumping ground. This asset is a Rico industrial building. I like the slanted wall on this. I think it makes for a really interesting shape out the front here to do stuff with, and it kind of breaks up from that blocky feel that a lot of industrial areas have while still keeping it nice and grotty. Over here is some of the same. There's some smaller assets lining this side of the road with some larger ones around the edge, a recycling centre in the middle to take care of their garbage needs, and then this is a Rico industrial asset over here. It's meant to look like a warehouse, and I tried to use some decals on the floor to make it look like they get driven over quite a bit. And there's some more grubby areas around the back here with some vans and some rubbish piles. And down this side I put a whole lot of cars as if people were parking them here before they go to work. This area is really cracked and run down. It doesn't get that much attention. Because people are constantly pulling up on the sides and there's loads of trucks running through here all the time, the ground gets very beaten up. But I made sure to avoid all of the warehouse entrances on the back and put the cars in between them because even though they don't like to park in designated spaces, they do care about the function of the building. Over on this side I've extended this fake train terminal area across the end of this road by adding another park asset over here and another one of my custom assets. The fence now goes all the way around and it really blocks off the end of this road and makes it feel like one cohesive piece rather than lots of different things put together. If you remember from the previous episode, a lot of these pieces are props rather than built into the asset, so building on existing things, whether they're vanilla or from the workshop, makes each area feel a little bit more unique. And especially when you're doing a big build like this, you don't want to just keep putting the same assets down over and over again or downloading enough off of the workshop that crashes your computer. So these little tweaks can just help break up the monotony a little bit. This building here is a police station, hence the cars out the front. It's got a real industrial feel to it, unlike some of the other stations which are a bit more grand or they were just too small for this area. So I've lined this side with some warehouses, and then on the corner here is a fire station. This is the most rundown fire station I could find. I've had this for a while from the workshop, and I just put some fire trucks down the back and a couple of cars for the workers. Obviously the edges of this area are not complete yet. This is going to be an ongoing build, so there will be empty edges all over the place. That's just room for expansion. It won't be like this forever. At the moment this is the only thing on this side of the map, so I'm going to need to build some towns down this side to make sure they have enough workers because they are currently demanding more staff. Some of these might form episodes, but most of them will be off camera because doing repetitive town building over and over again just isn't that fun to watch when they're all pretty much exactly the same. But I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let me know what you think of the industrial warehouse container site. I feel like it goes really well all together as like one big cohesive piece. I think that's partly to do with the fact that there's containers running through nearly all of the assets, and I spent such a long time on the workshop trying to find assets that would be perfect for this build. So instead of just having the one singular vanilla container asset, we've got warehouses and parks to fill in the gaps and lessen the demand for low educated workers. It will also increase the land value for this area and it will draw tourists, but I'm not too concerned about that because this map isn't too busy yet. Let me know if there's anything in particular you'd like to see in an upcoming build. I've learned how to do so many things on this game over the last few months, and I feel like my skill level is a million times higher than it was when I was doing my Calathea series, which I have been revisiting recently and doing a little bit more on, and I'm very tempted to start from scratch with it again, which I know is a terrible idea because it was so hard on my computer before because it's so huge, so asset heavy, and it did start to crash towards the end. But I had so much fun building that one, and I feel like I've learned enough to make it really good this time. And like I mentioned at the beginning, if you want to see any of my other builds, check out Cozy Skylines on TikTok and Instagram, where I'll be posting screenshots and small clips from all of my active builds. And like I mentioned in the last video, there is still an ongoing genocide in Gaza, so if you have any extra funds, please consider donating to one of the charities that are helping people both in Gaza and in the diaspora. I donate to medical aid for Palestinians from my shop proceeds, and I also donate some of my personal money to individual GoFundMes, which you can find through the Operation Olive Branch spreadsheet. This is once again a reminder that people in Gaza cannot store anything, and any food and resources that they're able to get their hands on gets destroyed in bombardments. So every time I do one of these builds, it's definitely in the forefront of my mind how privileged I am that I don't need to worry about that. Let me know what you think of today's build in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.